morning. Um, with this video, or I'm sure it's going to become a set or a series of videos, I really need to kind of warn you guys that it's not going to be entertaining. It's not going to be gaming related. It's not really anything to, as I said, entertain you guys. This is something that I guess over the course of the last several weeks, months, I've really felt the need and the necessity to do this video or group of videos, just so that I can, maybe help somebody else out there, maybe inform somebody else out there. I really don't know. Maybe it's to help myself, because this has been a tough ordeal for me, and it's been something that I've really, in one capacity or another, had to deal with my entire life. So, with that being said, if you don't want to watch this because of the fact that it might not be the easiest thing to listen to or the most entertaining, feel free to skip over these videos. But if you know somebody who's dealt with anxiety or depression, or if you yourself have dealt with anxiety or depression, then I hope that maybe I can some way be helpful, or give you some more information on the topic. I guess in order to really get started with this on my own, and let me explain, the taping environment. It's just, for me, this is an easier way to tape while I'm driving in the car, because of the fact that I've got a lot of time right now on my hands. Driving, well, I have a lot of time in the driving sense on my hands, and this is really the most private it gets for me. 5:40 in the morning, driving to work is about as private as it's going to get. So that's why I'm doing it in the car. But I guess, like I said, the best place for me to start is just to give you guys a little bit of history from me and explain to you how anxiety and how depression has impacted my life. Really beginning with the history of my family and what I've experienced, growing up, and just even before I grew up. There's really a long history in my family when it comes to depression, especially anxiety. I'm not as sure with anxiety, because to be honest with you, anxiety is something that really there hasn't been a lot that's been known about that in the medical community, at least not dating back more than 20, 25, 30 years. It's really something that's almost new, and they're still learning a lot about that, just because with anxiety, I think in the beginning, with the origins of anxiety, you kind of saw a lot of people being labeled as schizophrenic and crazy. They were locked up in mental institutions, and the key was thrown away. Now we understand that, it's not schizophrenia all the time, or it's not, obviously schizophrenia is a real disorder, or it's not, somebody's not crazy, or in fact, when a child has ADD or ADHD, it's not necessarily those two things either. There's this real, true thing called anxiety. So, with that being said, I don't know how far back anxiety goes on my family's side, but I do know that depression dates back for a long, long time. And I'm going to be really personal with you guys. I mean, this is, I'm not ashamed of what has happened in my family history, and there's no reason to cover it up, because you know, I didn't do it, and you know what? We all have different things that we have to deal with. Let me explain to you the way that I look at anxiety and depression really quick, and that'll also kind of help, you know, explain to you guys why I would actually share these things with you. For me, anxiety and depression, I look at it as a disorder or disease, much like cancer. Not to kind of, maybe not in the purest of senses, but, you know, like cancer, anxiety and depression is something that, it is a disease, in my opinion. It is something that, you know, is inherited. It is something that your body has the genes and the makeup, and because of genetics and stuff, you actually, unfortunately, inherit these things from your family and from your parents, and they do from their parents, and you know, so on and so forth. So anyways, you know, the depression has really been a big issue in my family, and there's been a number of suicides, in fact. You know, I don't want to give it, I don't know, you know, just to give you a rough idea as far as in terms of numbers, I think it's in the double digits. It's around 10, and I'm talking about past generations. I'm not talking about, you know, my aunts and uncles. I'm talking about, you know, great aunts, great uncles, great great grandfather. But the most recent one was actually my grandmother, which was, I believe, when I was 8 years old. I think it was 1988 when that happened, when she committed suicide. Now there's been attempts since, and the most recent one was in 2005, and that was my father. He tried to commit suicide. I remember I just started a job, and it was a pretty good paying job. It was brand new for me at the time, and I was excited and nervous at the same time because it was a new territory for me. And I had just left the job that I was at, and I was actually working with my father. We had a family-owned business, and you know, he knew that it was time for me to move on, and he actually encouraged me to move on. But you know, one day I got a call at work, and it was actually my first week of training there, and I didn't answer immediately because I was in the middle of training, and I kept on getting call after call after call. And finally my wife texted me, which she was my girlfriend at the time, and said, call me ASAP. So we're actually, we were at this food, I'm trying to think of the name of it, but it's like a food bank almost, and we were helping out there. So I stepped aside and I called my wife, you know, not really knowing, but obviously in the back of my mind, I knew that there was something going on. And she told me that my father was in the hospital and that he had had a heart attack. So I immediately had somebody who was there, had a vehicle, because we were all shuttled to this place as a group, as a training class. I immediately had somebody take me over to the hospital, and it felt like the longest car ride in my life, and it was probably a matter of about 10 minutes. And when I get over there, my mom tells me my dad's in a coma, and she proceeds to tell me exactly what had happened. And basically that morning he had taken an overdose of pills. He was on medication for depression at the time, like he had been for, you know, years. My dad always had dealt with depression. I remember it as a kid, and I remember it well. And just money was always, like, you know, one of those things he was always worried about. Even though my family was fine, and we weren't rich by any means, but we always they always made do. My parents always made do.